Michelle Miller for CBS News, and this is Eye on America. We take you on a domestic journey for an inside look at the nation's most pressing issues, and we introduce you to the innovators and problem solvers who are proving to be the heartbeat of our country. Let's begin in Miami, Florida, where a homeless assistance program is providing a partnership that goes well beyond the basic needs. Here's Manuel Bajorquez.
For 27-year-old Chris Benham, working for this Miami food distributor isn't just a job, it's a life changer. Only months ago, he was homeless, living out of his car.
One of the hardest things that any homeless person goes through is the constant disrespect that they get from every person that is walking the street or driving.
Right.
Yeah, it sucks being on the street.
So he decided to turn to a shelter.
I thought it was just going to be like every other shelter that I've been to, where they really didn't give a care about the people. But that was not the case.
He ended up at the Chapman Partnership. Like Benham, everyone who comes through here is assigned a case manager to monitor their progress through classes offered for new job skills. 20% of the homeless here aren't jobless. They just can't afford to make ends meet. And more than 40% are families with children who also attend classes, even banking courses.
Our goal is to make sure that they don't come back as an adult.
Samaria Hudson is the CEO. People would think that if you provide a warm meal, some shelter, maybe some clothes, that's the traditional approach. That's not enough.
We certainly do all of that. But we do believe that once we settle on your basic needs, we need to give you more.
This does require an investment from the community. The Chapman Partnership's 800 beds and programs are largely funded by a county food and beverage tax.
We want you to be part of our journey.
Hudson also fundraises, bringing her Harvard business degree and experience in the corporate world to a cause that's also personal. Her uncle, Billy Ray Bland, died homeless.
By the time he came in from the streets, it was too late.
But it wasn't too late for people like Chris Benham. Here he is at a graduation hosted by the partnership after learning to operate a forklift. And here he is now.
So what's the future for you?
The future is hopefully staying with this company and actually growing in it.
And it feels good?
It does, it does.
Feels good to head in a new direction.
And now we turn to another issue impacting so many families and students during this COVID-19 pandemic. School districts across the country are struggling to stay open. In New Mexico, the governor has called on the National Guard for help. With teachers and staff sidelined with COVID, at least 80 Guards men and women have volunteered to be substitute teachers. Chris Van Cleve has more.
So what is this one? Can you read to me?
Degree and diploma.
Good job.
A COVID call to duty is sending New Mexico National Guard Lieutenant Colonel Susana Corona back to class.
Keep going and let me see if Ina needs some help over here.
What made you put your hand up to say, all right, I'll go through the training and I'll be a substitute teacher?
It's the need. So neighbors helping neighbors, community helping the community for New Mexico.
Her mission, teach fourth grade in Estancia, a small town of about 1,800, an hour outside of Albuquerque.
What has surprised you so far?
It's actually surprised me how busy the teachers are. It's just action-packed.
Without this intel officer, these students would be practicing reading remotely.
Do you think this is a good use of the National Guard?
I do. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have volunteered if I didn't think so.
I'm thankful the National Guard's here. They've saved the day.
Superintendent Cindy Sims says this COVID surge has not only left her without enough teachers, it's been devastating for her entire community.
We've lost parents of students in our school. We've lost spouses of our staff. We've lost grandparents. And so we had death come visiting because of COVID.
Across New Mexico, COVID is raging, forcing about 60 school districts and charter schools to fall back to virtual learning. New Mexico's governor not only brought in the Guard, but she too is doing double duty as a substitute teacher.
We did math, we learned about syllables, we did a watercolor art project.
Good job.
But what do the kids think about a substitute in camo?
She is a very good teacher and she's very kind. She was really fun. I really like her uniform because I like how it has like the patches and stuff.
When we come back, vacant stalls and evolving consumer taste. We take a closer look at how dairy farmers are adapting in a changing environment. With the wide variety and rising popularity of plant-based milks, dairy farmers are feeling the squeeze. Milk consumption is down around 42% from almost a half century ago, from 247 pounds per person in 1975 to 141 pounds in 2020. But we visited 2 farms in upstate New York that are taking different approaches to adapt in the changing industry.
They'd all be out here on the pasture, grazing in the morning. Maybe not this time of year, but possibly with as warm as it is.
Walk through Tom Murray's old dairy farm, and you sense an emptiness in a space once teeming with life.
So this is where you did it all?
Yeah, this is where we milked our cows. This is where a lot of the herd was kept.
Vacant stalls where 90 Holsteins herded together to deliver their yield.
Do you miss them?
We don't miss losing money. If we could make money, we'd still be doing it.
Losing money forced Murray to shut down milk production in 2019 and sell off his prized heifers, even the descendants of his best, Lucinda.
Well, she set the world's milk production record in 1997, 21 gallon a day.
21 gallons, what's the average?
About 14 is about 100 pounds of milk per day per cow, 14 gallon.
Wow.
Yeah. We had good cows, so to make that decision was very personal, but also very needed for economic stability of this property.
Still gets to you.
Oh, yeah. When we're competing against the Walmarts and the Lowe's of this world on this size scale, we just don't cut it. We just don't have that scale of efficiency.
So this first-generation dairy farmer specialized. He became the big cheese of Miranda cheese.
Now, this is red pepper flake. And the heat will come late. It's not
late?
Late.
How late?
Well, at the finish.
How hot?
Well, I don't know your tolerance level, but it'll be fine.
Unlike milk, cheese consumption has nearly doubled over the last 4 decades. New York is already among the nation's top producers and ranks #1 in yogurt, cottage cheese, and sour cream production.
Well, we're trying to create a market to make our own cheese and create a destination here in the Finger Lakes. And it just happens to go good with all the craft beverage facilities that are already here.
And he continued his expansion with live music and tasting events. That's one approach.
Watch over here. These cows are being released.
Doug Young has another.
So it's all about efficiency.
He went big, increasing the number of cows at Spruce Haven Farms from 120 to 2,000.
You have to have a high levels of production per cow and per farm. Then you can spread the costs of expertise. And there's so many areas of expertise in dairy that there's no way one person can be good at all of them.
So essentially, diversification is the key.
Specialization. Whoever's responsible for breeding the cows or feeding the cows or taking care of sick cows, they have to be so good at it. They have to be as good as a veterinarian.
But that wasn't all. He joined forces with his neighbors.
International trade is actually phenomenal.
Former investment banker turned milkman Kevin Ellis heads Cayuga Milk Ingredients, a co-op of 30 farmers, including Young, who banded together 13 years ago to figure out their future.
The farmers of this region were shipping their milk as far as New York City, close to Boston, down into southern New Jersey to find milk markets. 10% of their gross income was going to transportation costs. That did not seem to be sustainable. So we started to envision building a plant locally to shorten the haul distance.
That plant also helped farmers erase the middleman. They process and market their own products. They even handle research and development. One of their solutions, dehydrating milk into powder to lessen its weight, which made it highly profitable.
To give you an idea, it was costing $2.50 a hundredweight to get product to New York City. When we take the water out, we can move that same product to Shanghai for 67 cents.
And then there's this, the manure digester.
What you're smelling is power.
Young sons Luke and Dustin are behind their sustainability operation.
Retention of 1.5 million gallons of raw manure. Under the cover, there's no oxygen, and it's at a temperature of about 104 degrees. So at that temperature, the microbes in there really break down the manure and release the methane. And we produce just over 500 kilowatts an hour.
What does that mean?
It powers our farm and about 2 farms the same size.
A utility savings of $250,000 a year for this 4,000-acre farm, a significant reduction in their carbon footprint, moving one day, they hope, to net zero.
Is it catching on?
I believe it really is. The technology is getting to a point where it makes sense for people to do. You know, it's easy to do something like this when you're not carrying the entirety of the risk.
So sustainability is a new word for an old principle, stewardship, which really comes from the Bible. So now that we have the ability to advance the science and measure the data, like carbon footprint per unit of nutrition or nitrogen footprint, we can measure it and manage it.
Do you want other farms to do what you've done?
It's clear now that the global food companies and consumers are expecting it, so we need to provide what the consumers need and want.
Oh, wow.
Ensuring a future for the next generation of dairy and farmers.
Now to a movement that addresses waste. It's a worldwide sustainability initiative that began in the Netherlands and has caught on stateside. Volunteers at a so-called repair cafe in Illinois are urging community members don't replace it, fix it. CBS Chicago's Marissa Parrott takes us inside one location in Evanston, Illinois.
They say one man's trash is another man's treasure. But in this room, there's no such thing as trash at all.
The impulse to throw something away after it breaks is rooted in the fear of asking for help.
Thank you, guys.
And if there's one place to feel safe asking for help with fixing, it's here at the Evanston Repair Cafe.
This is a movement that started in the Netherlands. I think it's in 2009, so there are a lot of repair cafes all over the world.
The movement is to create hubs where people can bring their broken things for repair.
It's super easy.
An idea Bea Cheverria recycled from overseas. Europe has roughly 2,000 of these types of repair cafes, and she noticed North America has a little catching up to do with less than 200.
The system here promotes the throwaway culture, so people don't think twice about, like, if they have a toaster that breaks, they're like, oh, I'll just buy another one.
Instead of taking your trash to the landfills piled with it, these people want to see if they can fix your trash instead. From the smallest jewelry to the biggest wheels, volunteers like Leah Moline fix for fun, and they do it for free.
Some of the things that come in, I didn't know. I wouldn't think to repair myself.
Here, the only thing that needs tossing is taking broken for an answer.
This is something that empowers people, it's fun, it builds community, it takes stuff away from landfill. It's a win-win-win situation.
It's fixed! Up next, we introduce you to a military mom who's mobilized thousands of volunteers to help Afghan refugees make a new home in the United States. It started with a small group of military spouses collecting donated furniture for Afghan refugees finding a new home in the United States last year. And now that group has grown into a movement. Deborah Alfarone shows us how a military mom mobilized thousands of volunteers to help welcome these Afghan families.
I think we're going to stage some stuff first.
If it looks like Amy Martin has done this before, it's because she has. As a military spouse and mom of two, moving comes every few years.
We have lots of moving hacks. We all have our best tricks.
Since Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, fell to the Taliban in August, she's been helping Afghan families move into new apartments in Northern Virginia every weekend.
This is the way to do it. First thought was, what are they going to do? And what can I do? It's our duty to be there to help them.
Martin signed up to volunteer for one of the many organizations helping to resettle refugees. Then she started a Facebook group to collect furniture.
Our group grew from 25 to 300 in a day, and now we sit somewhere around 1,100.
Unwittingly, Martin started an army.
You can help with that.
And it wasn't long before Martin realized setting up an apartment was just the beginning.
2 days later, they called and they said, we're out of food. I never got my Social Security card. My daughter is sick. I don't know where to go. The needs started coming one after the next, and we were problem solving very much on the fly.
Martin says the caseworkers assigned to help the families were overloaded. She and a handful of volunteers started working the phones, trying to make calm out of chaos.
Thank you. True military style, we made a standard operating procedure. We made a manual, put our brains together. What have you all figured out?
Tens of thousands of people from Afghanistan have come to the U.S. since the Taliban took over. Abdul Hasib Delawar, his wife and 3 children, arrived here the same day Kabul fell.
I can't express the feeling at that time that I'm losing everything that I have made for a long time, for years. My home, my family, my job, everything, it was very difficult at that time.
Delawar worked as an interpreter for an American military contractor in Afghanistan.
What do you think it would be like if you didn't have their help?
I can't think how it would be because we didn't know the transportation, we didn't know how we can get the apartment, where to buy groceries. We couldn't bring anything with us.
Martin and her team helped Delawar enroll his 2 sons in school and work with him on his resume so he can get a job. He says the warm welcome from Martin's group gave him and his family hope.
These people are such a great people. They are helping, though they didn't know me before, but I feel like I know them for years.
Martin has turned the Facebook group into a nonprofit called React DC. With thousands more Afghans waiting in limbo around the world and eventually heading here to the U.S., she says helping isn't a sprint, it's a marathon.
It's kind of walk the walk moment. I have 2 kids, and it's about, what are you going to show them? What kind of life are you going to show them? Are you just going to tell them to be good people, and serve your community? Or are you actually going to go out and do it?
The American West has faced a tough few years due to the extreme weather and drought. And for those who rely on agriculture for a living, that's made water harder to come by. Carter Evans introduces us to a man who's relying on a centuries-old tradition to help farmers track down possible water sources.
See that? That's really good.
With a pair of bent steel rods and a feeling.
And see when it crosses like that, there's water in that direction.
Rob Thompson is on the hunt for water underground.
I'm a water witch or a dowser, a doodlebugger, diviner.
He spends most of his time in drought-stricken California.
How's business for you these days?
All my life, I've never had it this busy.
Water witching has been documented as far back as the 17th century, and its validity has been debated ever since.
Rob Thompson is a well-known dowser located in the heart of Sonoma-Napa wine country.
In promotional videos online, Thompson says he's a modern-day practitioner, even dowsing on maps before getting out in the field.
But then there's a second strata.
We watched him witching in Doug Hill's vineyards, where they recently had to cut way back on the Napa City water they used to irrigate 12 acres of grapes.
What about next year?
Next year, they're saying they won't guarantee any water.
None?
0.
He's already drilling one of the locations Thompson identified.
You never know until you put the hole in the ground and figure it out.
Thompson's customers include popular wineries like Kendall Jackson and Gallo, and we confirmed they're happy with his work. But even Thompson can't explain exactly why witching works for him.
My theory is that we're kind of like a radio, and we're tuning into the electromagnetic fields of the earth. We got something there.
There is no science to back that up. But Thompson does sometimes work in conjunction with geologists and hydrologists. At Doug Hill's vineyard, they hit water at about 400 feet deep, but the quality isn't good enough. The well cost $12,000 to dig, and the drill rig isn't available again for months.
What do you typically say to people who doubt you?
I usually hand them a pair of rods. So you feel that?
Yeah. So what is that telling me?
You're over a water source here.
The rods did move,
but I don't know what I'm feeling for.
And what it is, it's your mind sending a signal to your muscular system to actually close those rods.
He's right. Psychologists call those tiny muscle twitches idiomotor movements. They're caused by subconscious mental activity.
See where it crosses like that, Carter?
Over 30 years of dowsing, Thompson claims his findings have resulted in 4,000 wells.
This water spot is right here.
The only way to find out if he's right this time is to dig another well that will cost tens of thousands of dollars. Well worth it to Doug Hill if he finds the water that will save his vineyard.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News, available across all platforms. I'm Michelle Miller. Thanks for joining us for Eye on America.